On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Right now, we're getting a great taste of seeing what the world's going to be like when Biden is in charge. When Kamala Harris and Biden are in charge, this is the world that we get to experience. If you ever disagree with what the mob says, if you ever disagree with what kind of clothes you're wearing, where they're manufactured, what kind of car you might drive, if you're allowed to drive at all, how far away from your house you're allowed to go, whether you can eat a hamburger or not, what kind of food you can have, whether you can go to the doctor. If you don't agree with the decisions that they decide for you, they will coerce you through intimidation, violence, and destruction. And this is how they roll. So we've got here revolution, nothing less. And then in the front, get rid of Trump, Pence, #out. So they're all about destroying. So this is the whole movement. This whole movement of Black Lives Matter, this whole movement of Antifa, this whole movement of violent, intimidating protests. Now, peaceful protests are great, but peaceful protesters don't get up in people's faces. And I'm going to show many examples. Don't get up in people's faces and intimidate and or threaten, and even sometimes they have assaulted or made contact, and it's getting very, very touchy. There was a beautiful ceremony last night at the Republican National Convention. It was actually really cool. I watched it. I hadn't really watched the other nights, but I wanted to watch the final one. I wanted to see Trump accept the acceptance, and I spent the entire long time watching it. And there was a lot of really good stuff in there. But at the end of it, all these poor people had to go home or the hotel, and that process played out very challengingly. Now, before we get into that, I want to talk about something that's pretty important. Now, you guys have heard of Portland, obviously. Portland's been rioting for 92 days. 92 days. Portland's been rioting. Finally, the mayor in Portland has finally said something like he's finally going to do something about it. But because he can't actually ask Trump for help, right? Because that would look bad for him, right? Because then everybody would get angry. It would look like he agreed with Trump, and you can't possibly do that. So he's not going to go about it that way. And it's really interesting how he does go about it. We're going to listen to what Kayleigh McEnany has to say about him finally announcing that he's going to do something about it. And then I'm going to pull up the story of him saying what he's asking people to help us out with. And the mayor of governor of whoever this guy is. Who is he, governor or the mayor? Whoever he is, doesn't matter. We're going to talk to him in a second.
Having willing negotiating partners in Congress, and so far we have none in the Democrat Party, it seems. And then finally, one thing I want to leave you guys with is that 18 days ago, Mayor Ted Wheeler tweeted, "What I saw last night in Portland was powerful in many ways. I listened, heard, and stood with protesters, and I saw what it means when the federal government unleashes paramilitary forces against its own people." He, in fact, called our federal agents paramilitary forces. And around this same time, our federal officers were facing rioters, barricading officers inside the courthouse, trapping officers inside, launching of commercial-grade fireworks. A federal agent's hand was impaled by planted nails. 3 officers were at least temporarily, I should say, blinded when a laser was put in their eyes. This has been an ongoing tactic by the rioters. That was 18 days ago when Mayor Wheeler stood with the rioters and against the, quote, paramilitary forces. But just 4 days ago, it appears Mayor Wheeler had a change of heart as local officers took over the situation in Portland. And he now, I guess this is what he believes now, quote, "When you commit arson with an accelerant in an attempt to burn down a building that is occupied by people who you have intentionally trapped inside, you are not demonstrating, you are attempting to commit murder." He could not be more right about that. It is a drastic change. It took him 73 days, I suppose, to come up with that realization. And what we're seeing in Portland with 6 nights in a row, riots being declared. On Wednesday, you had some of these rioters shining lasers in officers' eyes, disable security cameras, broke windows, used boards to barricade the doors, and start a fire with 20 sworn officers and civilian employees inside. This is unacceptable, and it is encouraging to see that the liberal mayor of Portland finally seems to realize that. Thank you, everyone.
Now, it's great that she's calling him out, and I love the way she is calling him out. But the part that really bothers me, and she didn't necessarily drill into it, but she spelled it out, I think, so it could kind of just sort of float in the air, which was, if you're going to use an accelerant to burn a building that has people in it. Now, just using an accelerant to burn any old building that may be empty right now or might not have people in it right now, that's okay. That's okay. Go ahead and destroy public property, private property, as long as there's nobody inside. Really? Again, it's kind of funny that that's the distinction. Now, I will say, when people are inside, it's a hugely bigger crime. Absolutely. Off the charts bigger. But it's still a really big crime when you just burn down people's private property, which again is what it's like to live with Biden in charge, what it's like to live with these guys in charge. This is the world we can experience if we let these guys win the election, steal the election, take the election, or even ruin our streets. But let's hear what this knucklehead has to say. And what is he? I want to find out if he's the mayor, what the hell he actually is. On Wednesday, Mayor Ted. See, I knew he was mayor. I was right there. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's check him out.
Enough is enough. It's time to rise up and to take immediate steps to repair and beautify our city.
On Wednesday, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler addressed growing frustration from those who work in and own businesses downtown. 3 months of protests, 23 of them declared riots, have left vandalism, trash, and questions of safety in their wake. Wheeler fears that lost in all of it is the Black Lives Matter movement.
We have allowed our proud tradition of progressive protests to be stolen by a few dozen individuals engaged in violence and criminal destruction. They're intent on creating mayhem and attacking and harming people, not just property. That's a line that we can't allow our community to cross, not anymore.
The mayor's resolve comes days after he and fellow city council members got a letter from Greg Goodman, co-owner of real estate company Downtown Development Group. As first reported by the Willamette Week, Goodman wrote, "You are willfully neglecting your duties as elected officials to keep our city safe and clean." In a statement to KGW, Portland Business Alliance president and CEO Andrew Hone said in part, "We're just not seeing the action we need from our elected leaders at all levels of government. Commitments were made several weeks ago, and there's been a failure to fully act on that plan and put in action long-term commitments such as toilets and cleaning stations for those in need and proactive graffiti cleanup and repairs after each night of damage." Between March and July, Downtown Portland Clean and Safe says its teams cleaned more than 92,000 bags of trash, biohazards, needles, and graffiti. That's up 12% over the same time last year. They'll team with Solve, the PBA, and others for a downtown cleanup next week. For Wheeler's part, he plans to meet Thursday with downtown stakeholders on how to clean and re-landscape the hardest-hit city blocks.
We're going to work hand in hand with local employers to restore their confidence and help defray the costs of their improvements.
The mayor says the public can expect to hear more from him on Thursday and in the days to come, a response to criticism for many days of silence on these issues. Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Thanks, Catherine Cook. I better turn that off because it'll refresh itself. Now, the thing they said in here, though, and this was interesting, is Ted Wheeler's apparently calling on citizens to rise up against the rioters. Now, I didn't hear that in that particular quote. Again, it's not 100% sure if that's what he said or didn't say. But the fact of the matter is ultimately, I think a lot of people are starting to realize that some of our government officials are definitely not interested in helping us. And in fact, now they've got businesses that are looking at suing a lot of these individuals because, hey, look, if we're paying all this tax and we're paying all this property tax and all this stuff that's supposed to go into keeping our city safe, keeping our city a place where we can do business, and you don't care, but you keep taking the money, something's drastically wrong and you have failed on your duties. Now, one thing, everybody's got to vote all these knuckleheads out. Every single one of these mayors or governors that allowed things to get to the levels they did needs to be out. Now, speaking of cities that have really strange mayors that are horribly problematic, this is one article on Zero Hedge. One article on Zero Hedge has it covered so beautifully. I mean, honestly, you cannot ask for a better article. I've opened a bunch of the individual Twitters, but it's like incredible how much stuff is going on. So let's just kind of walk through this article, and I think it paints a great picture. So protesters in Washington, D.C. clashed with the police Thursday night and into Friday morning as the last night of the Republican National Convention turned into a chaotic scene down the street from the White House. Now, again, Protesting, cool. People putting signs, love it. Like, that's fantastic. This is all good stuff. And my little brother even shared something with me later last night. It's like when the fireworks were happening, apparently all the protesters actually stopped and stared up at the fireworks, which is pretty funny if you think about, like, we're in the middle of protesting. Oh, cool, fireworks. Hey, look at that, right? It's a neat way it played out, and it was beautiful. But afterwards, yeah, things started getting a little angry. Again, we've got protesters here in front of the St. John's Church, infamous church, famous church. If we don't get justice, we'll burn it down. If we don't get justice, we'll burn it down. Now, obviously, we've seen this happen before. This is another example of a white female protester calls an African-American officer a traitor and an Uncle Tom. Just all sorts of strange on that, right? That doesn't even seem okay ever, but whatever. Okay. And then we've got this. This is a decent one that we're going to at least take a look at here.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
You see people taking punches. I will laugh. I don't know if you saw that part. This gentleman here, right? He's standing. He's all tough. He's like got his dukes up, and then he looks around and realizes, oh crap, all my friends left me, and he takes off and runs away. Anyway, again, a lot of chaos wherever they would go. Crowd swarms the DC police here as they try to make an arrest. This one guy is they're trying to get a dude. Literally, this white guy shows up with blackface and a cell phone camera and goes down to this mob of people. The cops basically try to arrest him in the process of, arrest him, save him, get him away from himself, whatever. In that process, someone runs over and assaults him, punches him in the face. Dude, the cops chase, catch that guy. When they finally catch the guy, then they get mobbed by everybody just trying to stop people from breaking the law. You're not allowed to run around and punch people. This kind of ridiculousness is not okay. And again, we're seeing all sorts of examples. Now, one thing I want to point out, and it's really important, and this is almost a small, weird little glimmer, a small diamond in the rough, if you will. So right now, everybody's pissed off at Trump, obviously, at least these people. And there's all sorts of rhetoric that keeps pushing that anger on them, right? We've got all these different organizations. We've got politicians. We've got news channels. Everybody under the sun is trying just to constantly flash all this attention, all this rage, get all these people angry. What's eventually going to happen, and not too terribly far, one, Trump's going to win the election again. That's almost a guarantee. We're all going to get out and vote, especially as this stuff continues. It's just going to enhance the need to do that. So everyone's going to get out and vote. Trump's ultimately going to end up winning. There's going to be a pretty big craziness that happens right after the election. And then things are probably going to come under control. And then the truth is truly going to come out. And what's going to happen is all of these people who are angry and are looking for someone to blame, they're going to get somebody to blame. And it's going to be all these Nancy Pelosi's and Adam Schiff's and all these people that have been in Congress for decades that have done nothing but make it worse. And when the truth comes out, think about, these people will turn on anybody. You know that. I know that. We've seen it. Think about what's going to happen when they turn on their owners, when they turn on their masters, how freaky that's going to be. They've already been some talks about how they're not going to be able to walk down the street. I think there's truth to that without a doubt. Now, this one really bothered me. This is Rand Paul. I don't know why he was freaking out on the streets. Maybe he was walking back to his hotel, whatever. I don't know. I don't know why we had senators, especially Republican senators or independent senators, either way, that are not safe walking through the streets. But yeah, let's check out how this ensued, because this is craziness. And again, these are the people that are going to be flooding our streets if Biden and Kamala Harris win. This is the future that we get to enjoy if we get the left-leaning progressive party that's currently Biden and Kamala. And then they've got Bernie Sanders in the background, and they've got the Ilhan Omar and Ocasio-Cortez and all the craziness. This progressive party is running. They have their hand up the back of Joe Biden, and they're like, bah, 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 bah. And every time they move their hand, Joe Biden's like, Weekend at Bernie's and just starts waking up and dancing. Anywho.
Say her name! Say her name! Say her name! Say her name! Say her name!
Y'all can take pictures and all that, but y'all gotta give us some room, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Move back!
Move back! You move the fuck back! Move back! Move
This intimidation, this threatening. I mean, again, it's messed up. This is just stuff that continues to spin out of control further and further and further. I don't know who Brian Mast of Florida is. I don't know if he's Republican or not. I guess I'm assuming he is, but this dude's got some cojones, if anybody does. I'm utterly impressed with him. Again, I don't know if he's Democrat or Republican. If he's a Democrat, I love the guy. If he's a Republican, okay, I love him anyway. It doesn't matter. But just listen to this. This is fantastic. Oh, does he have a fake leg or something? Are you kidding me?
Congressman, what brings you out here tonight?
What's that?
What brings you out here tonight?
Walking to my hotel.
Really?
Yep.
Did you attend
I
RNC?
sure did. It was a great time.
Did you enjoy the fireworks?
The fireworks, I thought, were outstanding.
What do you make of all these protests?
Everybody has their right to protest. That's a beautiful thing.
You're not afraid for your safety?
No. Should I be?
What do you think about police killing black people in this country?
Don't worry, we're gonna vote.
What
Good,
do you
you
think
should
about police killing black people in this country?
I don't think anybody should get killed wrongfully.
What do you think about police killing black people
right
in this
to
country?
due process,
Answer
right?
the question that I am asking.
So again, she just berates him. We've got another minute of her just going off on this guy. And now I don't know if he's Cuban or not. He looks like he very well could be, but whatever the case is, I think he's very cool, calm, and collect. I think his answers are 100% right. And he continues down the path that nobody should be killed unnecessarily or in a bad way or anything. He continues to go down that path. And she just continues to want to push that one direction, that one direction, that one direction. And again, that's all this is. It's a myopic. It's a short-sightedness. This is all they can see. And so this is all they can say. Because again, these talking points that are happening on the crazy progressive left are pre-fed to them. They're programmed. There is leadership. It might be loose, but there is leadership. They have little rally meetings before they go out. There are some key points that they are fighting for. There are places where they communicate. There is a message and there is some organization that's happening. There's another man and his wife that got mobbed on their way back to the hotel. This one I actually watched too. It's just, I mean, a bunch of this chick just screaming in his face the whole time. Just, he's like, she was cussing and he's like, watch your mouth. And then she instantly just starts saying it even more. And it's like, whatever. It reminded me actually of a fight I had with a couple buddies just this week. But that being said, the guy was cool. He was just trying to get into the hotel. Eventually, they tried to go to the front door. They're like, we're not opening the front door. You don't have your card to get in? Oh, man. So they ended up walking around. And at the very end, you see them walking down into the garage, into the parking garage area. And I think that's what the security people told him is, hey, go around to the parking garage. Legally, people didn't follow him down except one individual, I think towards the very end, you can kind of see. But apparently they're not allowed down there. So yeah, a lot of craziness was going around, a lot of intimidation, a lot of threats, a lot of actual violence, people assaulting others. And God forbid anyone that was walking around on the streets that had anything even remotely pro-Trump on definitely paid a price. So this, again, this is the world that we can expect. These are the vans they're trying to bring in. They're trying to bring in these big old buses to pick up people, right? They're trying to figure out how can we get these people out of here. This mob street violence is horrible. This poor guy had a wall of people in front of him, and eventually he's like, all right, I'm going to try to turn around. Well, that didn't go well, and then people started like hopping on the side of the car. It just stupid. Let's see if we can get it to play even for that matter. But again, it was just ridiculous how all this is playing out. This one's not going to happen. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But again, people trying to hop on, people causing just absolute chaos and pandemonium. This is just unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable behavior that's been going on out here. And just violence, just anger, and I get the whole George Floyd thing, but this has gone so far beyond that. This is now into the realms of absolute terror. We've got terrorists within our streets that live within our country. The very definition of that's domestic terrorism. I think Trump is this close to actually completely treating Antifa as such based off of their antics. I'd say they've earned that label that's soon going to be theirs. I think there are good components of that, and there's certainly many good components to the Black Lives Matter movement. But unfortunately, this thing has been taken over by a whole different group. And that whole different group is the reason why the Black Lives Matter movement is really losing a lot of respect, a lot of actual thrust and power. And really, the whole thing it's set out to do is being lost. And you guys right now that are saying defund police, all the people out there that are saying that, all you're doing is making most everybody else, and I mean way most everybody else, realize, no, we need more police. Oh my goodness gracious, this is ridiculous. And that's exactly what's happening. Life is getting crazy. One last thing I kind of wanted to point out, I don't know, maybe a glimmer of hope. But there's a report come out that the White House is going to release a dossier of all the fake reports, all the fake reporters. One big one that they used as an example was that Trump was using all of his facilities for White House events or for White House staff, and that he was making all this money, that room rentals, resort fees, and furniture removal, how Trump's company charged the U.S. government more than $900,000. Supposedly, not like I got the proof, but I'm pretty sure that if he's calling it out and saying this is fake, there's probably no record anywhere that says this is true. And to my understanding, Trump's not really, he stepped it aside. He said he even handed the business off to his kids. Most everyone knows that. He says he's lost billions of dollars being our president. I totally believe that guy's worth a whole bunch of money. So I think one thing that's really funny, too, that no one gives any credit to, because everyone says, well, Trump's just lying in his pockets. That's all he's doing. He's the only president, or maybe the second president, probably the only president. I think one president donated some of their salary. Trump donates 100% of the $400,000 to $450,000 salary he gets yearly. He donates that. So again, if he wanted to line his pockets, wouldn't he at least take that free $500,000 and then the book deals that are going to come after this? No, he's not. So again, they're going to be putting out a little dossier that's going to hopefully, I don't know, create maybe some class action suits, but they're getting very serious about it. A couple other quick stories I wanted to cover. This South Atlantic anomaly, I've talked about this. We're just going to cover it quickly. I've done other shows on it, but this thing's starting to actually get even more weird. They're actually concerned that this magnetic pole keeps drifting at the speed it's going to. They actually believe that it's going to split. So it does seem like something is happening with the pole of this planet, the magnetic pole. Do a search on the magnetic North Pole wandering, and it's traveled like hundreds of miles. Like, it's traveled a long way. It's traveled across the pole, and it's now running down into Siberia. So the North Pole has moved a lot. So something very strange is going on with our magnetic field on the planet right now. Something to be concerned about. And finally, a lot of saber rattling happening in the South China Sea. China had launched something like six missiles, ballistic missiles, over the carrier group and whatnot. One of them was supposedly one of the new hypersonic missiles that are supposed to be the carrier busters, the ones that will just nuke a carrier or whatever. Whatever the case is, Pentagon's like, hey, you're making things worse. Don't do that. That's not cool. Whatever. Saber rattling. That's why we've got a carrier group. Actually, I think two of them for that matter. That's why we've got all of this massive amounts of firepower in the South China Sea, close to Taiwan, really making China angry in territorial waters, but waters that China feels very strongly about. So again, not just having to fight this stupid domestic war, poor Trump, but he's also got all these other headaches that are happening around the world. China's having a lot of issues. There is a lot of stuff going on. And oddly, we're getting hit with some pretty ferocious hurricanes. And oddly, so is China. I'm just guessing, but I think that's weapon warfare, and I'm almost 100% sure of it because they'd never talk about it on the news, and there's really no way to prove it. But you've got HARP facilities, and there's a number of these facilities that can heat the upper atmosphere and do all sorts of crazy stuff. There's been weather modification patents that have been around since the early 70s and later. So there's a lot going on that we're probably not aware of. But oddly, China's getting inundated with some of its worst hurricane typhoons ever. And oddly, the ones that just hit us in the Gulf was pretty darn brutal as well. So something strange is going on. And again, fighting multiple fronts, and we're still holding true. Remember one thing, Patriots. This is our country. This is a country that we love, that we dearly love. And most of us anyways, have family and friends that have fought and bled for this country. It is our turn. It is our generation that is being asked to stand up for the freedoms that we have taken advantage for most of our lives. Now is the time to understand that we need to stand united. We need to outstretch an olive branch to these people that are going to slowly wake up, that are going to realize that their government has been doing horrible things to them. Even though they've blamed Trump, they're going to find out otherwise. And they're going to find out, unfortunately, they've been misled for many years by the Democrats. So hopefully we can help some of them. But the rest, we need to stand strong. Now is the time we stand united and we stand together. Where we go one, we go all. It's On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.